Hi there. Welcome to another live stream Lee conversation about entrepreneurship and growing your business and all those kinds of things. I want to welcome you. Thank you for coming back and tuning in. We have I think, interesting conversation today, and we've got a special guest expert, Chuck May. He'll be joining us in a few minutes, and we're going to be talking about something that is near and dear to the hearts of every successful entrepreneur. Especially if you haven't yet reached some of the targets that you're trying to reach. I'd like to start off, though, by inviting you to go to livestreamlee.com and click on the link that says Join My Community. When you do that, you're going to create an account on Apricot Rocket, which is the software company that I have, which is a digital marketing set of tools. It's a free account, and when you do that, you'll also be in the livestreamlee.com community. Today, I'm going to be introducing a document that, while you can see it on screen and we're going to talk about it, it's going to be a whole lot more useful to you if you actually have the document. And so the way for you to get the document is to create an account, log in, go to the community, and then you'll be able to click on a link and download it and use it however you want to. So there you go. That takes care of that. So today we're going to be talking about what I call audience clarity and target-rich environments. And I normally have a lot of little slides that I put up here, but today I'm doing this a little different. I actually have a document, a Microsoft Word document that I'm going to show you. But before we jump into that, I want to talk about what I think of when I say the words audience clarity and target-rich environment. And there's a lot of different language that really discusses this topic. A lot of people call them customer profiles. A lot of people call it avatars, but it really boils down to a very simple concept, and that is you really need crystal clarity on who your client is. Now, there's a lot of different ways you can approach this. One of the ways is to build a profile of your client, basically with names and demographic and psychographic and sociographic sort of thoughts. Another way, and this is how we're going to start off, we're going to kind of touch on all of these. Another way is to think really carefully and clearly about what problem do you solve? And then who has the problem? Now, there's a lot of people in business that really, can't clearly articulate the problem they solve and who has the problem. Important, extremely important. You need to be able to communicate the benefit that the customer receives. I like to say, people listen to one radio station and one radio station only. That's called WIIFM. What's in it for me? People want what they want. They don't want what they need. They are tuned in to hearing about things they want to hear about. And so they want to hear about benefits. And so you need to be crystal clear, not only what problem you solve and who has the problem, but the benefit they're going to get and the value that they get out of that benefit. Now, these are simple concepts, but it actually turns out to be quite the tricky thing in some cases to get clarity and describe succinctly these issues. Once you have honed in on the things that in the audience clarity section, I could give a way bigger list of items. That's actually kind of what comes next. But once you've done that, what you really need to look for is what I think of as a target-rich environment. I love the scene in the original Top Gun when Maverick and the Goose walk into that bar, and Maverick says to the Goose, "Now this is what I call a target-rich environment." And that's what all of us in business really hope to be able to find is a target-rich environment. But you're not going to be able to find a target-rich environment until you've answered the questions related to audience clarity. And one of the things that you want to know is where they hang out and what message they respond to. Now, as we go through this audience clarity exercise, I call it building an avatar. As we go through the exercise, things we're going to talk about is some of the psycho and sociographic aspects of who your audience is, and try to get a better handle on the kinds of languaging and the kinds of topics that are actually going to make their ears perk up and have them tune into your message. And that's important because there's so much message clutter out there. So with all of this in mind, I'm actually going to launch a screen here with a document on it. Again, this is the document that you're going to be able to download from livestreamly.com. And I need to actually clear something off my screen. Here we go. And I'm not sure how to make this any bigger. Let's see if I can't. Hopefully you can see it. So what I've got, I'm going to have to pop over here. Okay, this is the first time I've actually done this live, and I'm going to scroll up to the top. So the document's called Developing an Avatar. And I'm not going to read this to you because you can read that. But there are fundamentally two types of avatars. They are not mutually exclusive. There's some crossover, but there's an avatar or a customer profile for a business customer and a customer profile for a consumer type customer. And your business may have clients that are in business, or you may have clients that you think of as consumer customers. In either case, when you develop an avatar, you might have more than one product or more than one service that you offer. So you've got to go through this exercise for each product, each service that you offer in most cases. Now, if you're, say, for example, in a manufacturing environment and you sell parts to machines, you may not need to go through this exercise for every part, but for every category of client and for every group of services or things that you offer, you'll need to. So you start off by labeling the avatar. And so I have this line here that says, use this space. This is where you describe the product or service so that you're focusing your attention. Now, I have two different columns on this document, one for consumers and one for businesses. And if your primary customer is a business, you're going to be interested in certain things. So we're kind of focusing on what's in the right-hand column now. Let me get rid of this little graphic here. We're focusing on what's in the right-hand column now. And you're going to be looking for things that are of interest to you. Now, the document that I'm going to be providing to you that we're looking at has a lot of information on it. And quite honestly, some of it's not going to be at all applicable to your company, your product, your service, and some of it will be. And so your goal here is to use this as a starting point and then modify it, edit it to be more particular to your business. I've tried to be relatively all-inclusive, but by no means will I have thought of everything. So you might, as you're looking for a target-rich environment, want to be able to identify customers or potential prospective customers based upon things like SIC codes or NAICS codes, industry descriptions, things like that. So you look at the right-hand column and you kind of go down and you look at the important things for you. It might be how many employees or what's their annual sales. It might be for how long they've been in business, or are they public or private, and so on. You might be concerned about the number of locations or the number of vehicles or the amount of square feet that they have. You should have a really good, clear idea of the kind of business that you're after. And so it might be that you're interested in specific assets or that credit ratings make a difference. It might be that you're looking for certain industry success factors, or maybe one of the best ways for you to approach this is to look at the competitors that they have. There's a whole variety of different things that are going to help you understand your customer profile. And again, what I have in this right-hand column is just a starting point for you. Now, when you have a B2B business, you have to always remember that the person that is going to be making the purchase is a person. Businesses don't buy, people buy. And so even if your focus is primarily on the business to be able to sort of filter out who your targets are, you still are going to have people that make the decisions. And so the left-hand side of the column still has some applicability when you're looking at businesses. It might be that the majority of your target clients are golfers, or they play tennis, or they have certain other characteristics in common. It might be that they're pilots, or that they drive a certain kind of car. So you can't really ignore the consumer elements. Now, they may not be individually targeted, but this helps you with the messaging. When you focus on consumers, you're going to do things like look at, and this is the left-hand side of the column, everything from their gender and age to education level, what kinds of degrees they have, marital status, income, and so on. Now, it's very common for you to assign a name to the avatar as you create the avatar. And by doing that, you personalize it a little bit more. But again, in the left-hand side of the column, and this is not all inclusive, but it's a good list, you'll be looking at things like how much education they have, what their income level is, number of kids, number of vehicles, type of vehicles, age of vehicles, do they own a house or not, how large is their house, of course, area, what zip code, what city, state, that kind of stuff. But you also want to drill down into what I think of, or what are more psychographic and sociographic variables. You want to look at things like what type of entertainment do they prefer? What type of things do they read? What is their leisure preference? What are their social activities and their personality types? And again, a lot of this is to help you think in terms of what kind of languaging and graphics are you going to use when you initiate a communication process. You know, if you know that somebody listens to Damon John or broadcast, or they're participating in maybe a Tony Robbins program, then mentioning those names is going to capture their attention. So understanding again things like their gurus and their personality type is going to help you. You also want to be able to focus on understanding their goals and passions. This is again in part to help you communicate and get resonance in your communication with the client. Importantly, what are their pain points? What are the things they fear? What are the desires they have? Almost everybody in business has concerns. I won't necessarily say everybody stays awake at night worrying about stuff, but if you're in business, you always have concerns that you're wanting to make sure, worries that don't happen to you. So what are the pain points and the fears that your client has or your customer has? And then when you approach them, what are the logical or likely objections that they're going to have? And then you want to have some prepared responses. You want to be prepared to be able to overcome those as you engage in a communication process and try to convert an inquiry or an action of some sort into the next stage in your sales process. There's additional notes and quotes. So this is actually a worksheet that you can use to help you identify the clients that are your target audience. Now down below this, and I'm not going to go through it, there's a lot of additional guidance and thoughts that you can fill in. Why did they hire you? What do they do after work? There's a lot of things that you can think about that'll help stimulate your thought process. And what you should really do is try to focus your attention on your top 2 or 3 or 4 clients. It's a good idea to have at least 3 or 4 clients that you can focus on. If you have a much larger business with a much deeper base, you can actually potentially run some metrics through your CRM or what have you to be able to pull this data out. Now, so again, I'm just going to scroll down. This document has a lot of information in it. It's about a little over 2 pages long, and it's a great starting point for you to be able to prepare your own avatar. I'm now going to pop out of this and come back over, and we're going to get Chuck in. So I'm going to remove that from the screen, and I'm going to add Chuck. But before I do, I'm going to introduce Chuck. I've known Chuck now for, 15 years or so. I won't quite say that we both had hair back when we first met, but it's been a long time. And Chuck is one of the founders and a managing partner of a group of consultants and advisors called Inflection Point. He's very active in the Dallas business community, and Chuck's a really smart guy. When you're in the room with Chuck, you know who's the smartest guy, and for me, it's Chuck. So Chuck, I want to welcome you to our program and ask you to tell me what you have a lot of clients. You've been in business for a long time, and I know without a doubt that you go through this process, this kind of a process with your clients as you onboard them. Can you tell us a little bit about how you approach these topics?
Sure. First thing I would say is, as one of my mentors told me a long time ago, is that if I'm the smartest guy in the room, basically everybody else is in trouble, and I'm in the wrong room. So how we go about this is we were exposed to a number of years ago and have tried to make ourselves experts in a tool that is taught as part of the business model canvas, which is first school I was aware of this was teaching it was Harvard. Today it's taught it, and from what I understand, basically every major business school on the face of the planet. UTD adopted it 6 or 7 years ago, the business model canvas, and completely changed their entire undergraduate entrepreneurial school around the canvas. SMU adopted it a couple of years ago. The value proposition canvas is something that spins out of that. So how we go about it is the first thing we do when we have a new client is we have something we call an inquiry session. So it's a 2-hour session, but it is intense. There's a lot of prep work beforehand, but the purpose of that session is for us to understand who our clients are, who they think they are, what they think their market is, just to really kind of get in their heads and see themselves from their perspective. Once we have that as background, then the next step is we start the first of usually multiple value proposition canvases. Are you familiar with the value proposition canvas, Lee?
I'm not personally, no.
Okay. Well, the way it's built, well, let me kind of take a step back. What we're shooting for, and we tell our clients, is what we believe, again, some mentor of mine a long time ago said, if you do marketing right, tongue in cheek, is by the first time you ever even hear of your prospect, they have already decided they want and need your product or service. They've already decided they're going to buy it from you, even though you've never met them before, but they know about you and they know what makes you different. And it's basically yours to lose at that point. So everything that we try to do is try towards that end in mind of that's what we're shooting for, is the prospects who have already decided they want to buy your product or service, even if it smells and looks like somebody else's. They don't want it from somebody else. They want it from you. So it's not only the value of your product or service, the device or whatever it is yourself, but it's you. What makes you unique in their mind? So the value proposition canvas starts by asking, what are the jobs, is what they're called, that your prospect has when they go to work in the morning. All of our work is business type of stuff. So the way we say that is we're talking about the decider, not someone, an influencer necessarily. I'll get to that in a second. But who is going to decide? You kind of touched on that, Lee. In some cases, though, you have to get through a gatekeeper before you get through to the decider. And if you're developing your story for the decider, but you're giving it to the gatekeeper, you're missing the point. You got to be thinking about that gatekeeper. If you don't get past them, you don't get to the next step. So the jobs they come in 3 flavors: what's functional, social, and emotional. So when that person gets up in the morning, they go to work, they have jobs to do it in their mind. What do they think their job is? And their jobs can be, what does their boss expect them to get done? That's the functional. The social is, I want to look like a leader. I want to look like whatever it is. I don't want to look like an idiot. I don't want to be embarrassed. I don't want to advocate a product, yours in particular, and then have my fellow teammates laugh at me. That's social. Emotional makes me feel good. I'll buy your product or solution. If it's a 50-50 toss-up, I'm going to buy yours because I feel better about it. That's an example of an emotional job. So that's where you start, is we go through a deep discussion, both with our clients and research, of figuring out that decider. What do they think? It doesn't matter what you think. It's what do they think their jobs are. And then once you figure out those jobs, then for each job, and we'll usually end up with 15 to 20 at least, and sometimes it's 30 or 40, as strange as that may sound. But then for each job, the way the canvas works is you figure out what are their pains, as you were saying a while ago, Lee, is for them to get that job done, what pains are they currently experiencing getting it done? Get in their head, their seat. Same thing as what are the pains they're trying to avoid. Maybe they're successfully avoiding them now, but they certainly want to avoid them in the future. Again, right. You got to think in that perspective.
So what are the areas where you have the most challenge, or and I know every client, every engagement is a little different, but you know, I have found from experience that I can often go into situations and fairly quickly recognize where the underlying issues are. That comes with experience, and you've got a lot of that. But when you come into a new engagement, where do you find is typically the most challenging aspect of getting the client to get it, to work with you and to get what you're trying to achieve?
Well, and to that point, Lee, we tell our clients that first canvas session that we're going to have, it's hard. You can just see their head hurting. They're trying to understand, what are we doing and why are we trying to do it? And after about an hour, you can see the ice starting to break. And, oh, I kind of get it. And then they kind of start leaning into it, and then it starts flowing. And what I'd say, and answer your question, the hardest thing is most clients are focusing what they think the benefits of their product are. The bells and the whistles and the colors and looky here and blah, blah, blah. They're not putting themselves in the seat of that buyer and getting right deep inside their soul, and thinking about those issues, especially those more juicy things of the emotional and social jobs. And that's, again, where the hooker is.
So how do you, when a client doesn't have as good of an understanding of their buyer experience as they're going to need, what is the kind of exercises or investigational sort of thoughts or processes you try to lead them down so that they can get that data? Because that's obviously got to be critical to their ability to do the rest of the communication and the target audience identification. So what are some of the more common types of investigative processes you try to put in place?
Well, a couple of the most simple ones is saying, of your best client, answer these questions from what you think their perspective is. Why did they buy from you? Why are they so loyal? Put yourself in their shoes and answer these questions. And now let's go to your biggest loss, clients that you can't sell or you had and you lost. Same questions. What was behind that you think? And again, what we find is a lot of people just aren't willing to think that hard about the other person, putting their hat on. That's what we do. Of course, we do some research, but.
Do you get involved in actually interviewing those best clients and worst or biggest losses because sometimes it's got to be a little tough for the client to become objective in the questioning process, right? So I'm guessing that's part of what you do.
We have done that. Again, what we generally find is that those sessions can be pretty raucous if we've got 2 or 3 or 4 of their clients in there, because again, what we say is you have to be aligned internally before you can really make this work. And what in most cases we find out, they are not aligned internally, and they know it. Sometimes they know it, sometimes they don't know it. but it's a forum for getting those views out there. And by the time we dive that deep as we do, in general, we're getting they have a pretty good feel for their clients. But we have had those engagements where we do go out and talk to their best clients and their unhappy former clients, those type of things.
So do you have, we only have a couple of minutes left here, but do you have any, is it possible to put like a range of sort of how long this initial baseline establishing process takes with an average client? Is it something that you can usually accomplish in a few hours, or is it something that takes longer? I mean, what does the overall process look like in terms of the length of time that it takes you to get through?
Our typical engagements, we have what we call a crawl, walk, run strategy. The crawl was meant to say, we're not going to try to sell you everything that we could possibly ever do to you, do for you. We need to find out if we can even help you at all. And that's where the inquiry session starts in the value proposition. So what we say is we can get ready for, hold the inquiry session, give the report in as few as 10 days. Generally, it's going to take 2.5 weeks. The value proposition canvas, again, generally we have multiple sessions because they have different products, more than one, to more than one target audience. And you have to do a canvas for each pair, just very unique product for that audience. So that first session can take, again, it takes about 10 days to get ready, to plan it, to do it. But then there might be a series. So generally we tell them 6 to 7 weeks for that first engagement from the beginning to the end.
Thank you. I really appreciate the fact that you have laid out several weeks. 6 or 7 weeks is a serious amount of time for a company that's serious about growing to be able to spend on this most critical phase, which is identifying with clarity who your customer is, the benefit that you provide, and matching it up to the languaging that they're going to respond to. You have a different process than the one I'm describing. They, I'm sure, mirror each other in many respects, but the takeaway that I hope our viewers will have is that this is not something to be done lightly in a 15 to 30 minute session. If you're going to get value out of this, not only do you need to do it and think seriously about it, you probably need to get the input of some additional people that are familiar with your company, run it by them, and then do it again. This is not a one-time, one and done sort of thing. This is an iterative process where as you sort of peel the first layer of the onion back, you get a little deeper into it.
Right.
I really appreciate you spending a few minutes today, Chuck, to describe your process. And
thank you, Lee.
Thank you for being my guest, and I'd love to have you back sometime in the future. In fact, I want to interview you as one of our interviewees in the not distant future. So we're going to get together and get that on the schedule. And again, thank you very much. Folks, Chuck May with Inflection, NFLXN.com. Reach out to Chuck through his website. Thank you, Chuck.
Thank you, Lee. Good seeing you. Bye-bye.
All right. Again, the document's a great starting place and will carry you a decent step along the way of getting your synchronicity of audience and problem solution and messaging, those kinds of things put together. So be sure and go to livestreamlee.com and join the community, and the document will be there for you to print out if you have questions. Livestreamlee.com. Somewhere over here on the right-hand side, I can click on that graphic again so that you can see it. I am also going to show, this is the Monday, Wednesday startup and growth acceleration tips part of our program. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, we talk about strategy. And tomorrow, our strategy session is going to be what I call micro strategies, finding micro strategies with doing a SWOT grid analysis where you match your strengths and weaknesses with the opportunities and threats to have specific strategies on how to build a more successful company. So please join me tomorrow as we talk about how to do a SWOT grid analysis and identify micro strategies. We are out of time today. Thank you for joining us, and I will see you tomorrow. Thanks for your time. Bye.